I've been a gadget fanatic for as long as I can remember. And I think it's been since at least 2012 or so when the first Pebble Kickstarter edition watches came out, pictured up here. I've had a succession of different smartwatches over the years. I mean, it's been every year, maybe every 2 years max or so, that I've actually changed my watches. And mainly you've got that problem that with many of these smartwatches, software updates discontinue at some other point, or the battery dies and you're left with a paperweight. So you've got this drive the whole time to sort of sell the previous one and then get the next one. Otherwise, like I said, you're going to be stuck with one that's just going to become a dead weight at some other point. And they've all had their sort of pros and cons, and I've really enjoyed using them. They've all been very interesting to use. One or two did cause me some particular problems, and I think one was the LG watch, which is, I think it's this one, in fact. This one, its particular issue was back in the day, the GPS and something or other was built into the watch strap. It's horrifically expensive, I discovered, to replace that watch strap. So that I'm actually sitting with here, dead watch. I never actually managed to sell it because it's just the strap that broke. But the problem is there was no replacement for it without having to really fork out quite a bit of money. Apple Watch I really did quite enjoy, but I went off iPhone. So, you know, that killed it for me as an Android user. But anyway, that be it as it may. The issue really being is I came to a very big realization last week that this, even though I'm selling the watches at about half of what I paid for them, I'm paying up still for the next watch as well. So the issue being, it's cost me a fair bit of money over the years. Do you keep chasing this constant investment in smartwatches all the time? These are not watches that you can wear for 20, 30 years at a time. Or does this point come as I reached it, where I realized, hang on a minute, what actually am I doing here with regards to watches? So let's just have a look at the crux that I sort of hit and what I realized here. It was mainly this issue that really brought things to the fore, the battery life. So I've got the Samsung Galaxy Watch 7, and generally I've got 2 days of battery use out of it. So I charged it every second evening, and I'd get sort of 2 days of use out of it. But that also meant that I'd turned a lot of things down, like less notifications, shorter backlight time, all that sort of thing. I was sort of happy with the 2 days. But you've got this constant chasing. Have I charged it? Is it tonight I must charge? Tomorrow night I must charge? And so on. Well, the last update to UI 8 now meant I was about 2 to sometimes 3 hours short of on the second day, which really started to irritate me. I mean, it'll be just about supper time on day 2, and now what now? The battery's dying. So that is what brought everything to the fore for me. This is getting ridiculous. Why am I charging a battery every sort of 2 days or less? I'd already pared down the notifications, as I said. I found mostly also wearing a watch. The problem often is a smartwatch, that is. If you've got all your notifications on, you're going to be checking your wrist the whole time. It vibrates and it beeps and every single notification comes up. So I'd already radically pared these down to just a couple of essential things. Again, then do you need it for the notifications if you've pared it down so much? I actually started preferring to just take my phone out once in a while to check what I needed to respond to, and that was it. Because chasing notifications, unfortunately, is something that smartwatches tend to drive in you as well. Then also, interestingly, with that Galaxy watch, the Samsung watch, it was fairly good on sleeping heart rate and also just normal walking around, but it was not accurate on high intensity exercise. And that's true for my Galaxy Watch 5 and 7. The 5 I sent back twice to Samsung to, in fact, to have it tested because it was so bad. And, well, they kept saying, well, no fault found, really, it works. Well, it works, but it's not accurate. So I'd already invested in a Polar H10 chest strap quite a long time ago when I got the first Samsung watch. And I've been using that for all my exercises ever since. So in actual fact, in my case, I was not using my smartwatch for exercise tracking at all anymore. Your mileage might vary a bit in that particular case, but it's another thing that brought it home to me. I'm not using it for exercising. Then, of course, I've already talked about the cost of replacing every 2 years. It's at least been 8. I actually realized when I did that first slide now, it's probably a good 9 or 10 watches, in fact. And, at about 2,000, 2,500 Rand to maybe even 3,000 Rand plus that I have to pay in each time I've upgraded, what does that equate to over the years? Quite a fair bit of money I've spent on smartwatches. And then, of course, I already have a smartphone that has got notifications, NFC payments, etc., on it. I've got the Aura Ring that I use that mainly works really when I'm sleeping, but it does a step count as well. And as I said, I've got the Polar chest strap. So taking all that into account, really, I just had this revelation. Do I actually still need a smartwatch? So yes, it just made me sort of really think, what am I doing with a smartwatch? And bearing in mind all this cost and what I'm really using it for at the moment, is it worth me carrying on with smartwatches, or should I look at some other alternative? And just for a laugh, I thought, you know what? Let's dig out my old Seiko chronograph that I've had probably for 35 years now, give or take. It's at least about 35 years. Yes, it's quite banged up and scratched and everything. It's done a good many years of being worn as well. And I took it out for a walk on one of my exercises. So I'm using my Polar chest strap anyway for the exercise. I took the Seiko chronograph with, and I realized, you know what? Another thing, I can read this in the bright sunlight. I used to have to wait until I passed under the shadow of a tree before I could read my smartwatch and sort of really see what was on the screen. And this really got me thinking. Oh, and by the way, just as a matter of interest, yes, I know that I just put this on my wrist and went walking. But the point is, I did discover how to zero all these chronograph hands and dials. So it doesn't look like that anymore at the moment. I've actually tidied it up quite a bit. But this then really brought it home to me. And I thought, hang on, let me go see if I can't go back to like a retro watch again. Will it work for me? So I did what I normally do. And I put together a table, like a decision table, where on one axis I look at everything I want to, or what I currently use out of a device. And then looking at the alternative or the upgrade or whatever, I go look at how that would compare to what my needs were. And is it something, is it going to be better off for me or not? So let's have a look at that. These were, in essence, then really the requirements or the features that I was already using my Samsung watch for. So I use it as a basic step counter for the day to judge how much activity, how busy or how much physical activity I'm doing, because I spend a lot of time sitting as well, of course, which brings me to the next one here, the move reminders. So it's quite important for me to have an hourly move reminder if I have not been moving for that hour, that I just get up and walk around a little bit. And always on display, well, that's something you had to get used to with smartwatches, because if I had that on the Samsung, well, that would kill the display. But, it's a factor I was looking at. Just looking at my heart rate, either throughout the day or exercising or sleeping. Blood oxygen was something that I was very into, obviously, when COVID came out. Now, maybe more to a lesser extent, it's not really such an issue anymore. But it's something maybe, one just wants to keep an eye on, at least periodically. Then NFC payments, I use that quite intensively. I use my watch a lot to tap to pay in shops and that sort of thing using a virtual credit card. World time, I've got family and friends overseas, so I like to also just keep track of time in a particular time zone. I use my watch a lot on my wrist for my grocery shopping list. So I have it, constantly. I can just glance at it and I can tick off my items as I'm shopping. That's better than having to haul your phone out of your pocket and carry it in one hand while pushing a trolley with another hand, and then your third hand is grabbing stuff off the shelf. The find phone feature is quite useful. If you have just put your phone down somewhere, left it, you can press a button on your watch and you can, hear where the phone is. Notifications, I have sort of mentioned, maybe not something you necessarily want to have, but yes, it's something I was using it for. Bright sunlight I've touched on, and actually have an issue with my smartwatch, and battery life, this 2-day charging cycle the whole time. So this is how the smartwatch was comparing for me. In most cases, it was doing everything for me. Just a note there, the always on display, you could have it on, but you would kill the battery. I mean, the battery probably then wouldn't even last one day. It would be less than a day. And so I've never really had the always on display for the watch. I generally had it as my wrist, but even that has been chewing the battery. I've mentioned these already here. Just to note there again, as I said, it's 2-day max for the battery life. Then comparing it with a retro watch, something caught my eye. I started looking actually on YouTube, and you can try this for yourself. It's going to open a whole rabbit hole for you to sort of fall down. But if you go and search for, I ditched my smartwatch for a retro watch, you'll be surprised how many videos then start popping up that you see how many people have, for their own reasons, have ditched their smartwatches. And I did eventually come across a Casio, and I was quite interested in the Casio. And then I found this one particular Casio, the ABL-100WE, which actually has got a step counter and the associated movement reminder. And that was to me very interesting, because I thought, hang on, that sort of then is starting to actually make sense for me. Obviously, it being a retro watch, or a retro style watch, should I say, because just bear in mind the one that I'm looking at, the Casio, what I bought, it was actually released in 2024 with Bluetooth built in. So it's retro style. I think it's the 168 model that they upgraded basically with Bluetooth and step counters. But the fact of the matter is, it's actually not an old watch. It's actually a modern watch in a retro styling, if you want to put it that way. Always on display. It's always on, 24/7, year after year. Okay, it does not have heart rate monitor, doesn't have blood oxygen monitoring, no NFC payment. It does have world time. It doesn't have the grocery list. It has got the find phone feature. It doesn't have notifications. Of course, it's viewable. It's even better in bright sunlight, actually. Its battery life is about 2 years of use, but many of the Casios, you can actually get up to 10 years of battery life before you have to change your battery. And that's not charging them or anything like that. And just by way of comparison, because I've thrown this into the mix, I've included the Aura Ring. Yes, the Aura Ring also has the step counter as well as the movement reminders. It doesn't have a display. It does the heart rate as well as blood oxygen while you're sleeping. So every night you are getting a benchmark on that, and whether it's improving or not. Okay, and there's no payment and none of the other stuff really is applicable, and it's got a 6-day battery life. So the point with that is, it's not like you've got to charge it every day or two. That is fine for me. 6 days or a week is acceptable to charge or recharge something. So that's the decision table. And this was starting to make a lot of sense to me. So the one last step I took was just to have a look at how could I work around some of these red no's and just try and make this sort of work for me. And this is what I really ended up with. So on the heart rate monitoring now for the Casio watch, I'm ready for exercises using the Polar H10 chest strap. So in essence, that was absolutely no change. It wasn't an issue for me. For sleep, I'm using the Aura Ring. I've already been using the Aura Ring, in fact, so the Samsung was just a nice to have duplicate of that, really. The blood oxygen, as I said, not as critical anymore, but the Aura Ring is measuring that during sleep. So these are the compromises or the issues, really. The NFC payments, I just have to haul my phone out, once or twice during shopping trips to tap and pay. It's not a train smash. What I did discover was there's also a nice quicker way on the Samsung Galaxy S23 that I've got. I found out that you can actually, there's a particular type of swipe you can do from the bottom of the screen upwards, which will quickly bring up your tap to pay. And all you've got to then do is uses your fingerprint to validate it. So that's actually made my payments a little bit quicker than I thought or was expecting with the phone. The grocery list is still quite an issue. I'm going to have to try and carry the phone around a bit. That's my biggest compromise at the moment, to be honest. And then on the notification side, yes, I've got the phone for notifications. I would say from a digital health sort of and well-being perspective, it may be a good thing not to actually have all your notifications coming up all the time. I still only have the few critical ones that I want to keep an eye on. And I've set different ringtones for certain important things that I need to sort of monitor if those messages come through on Telegram or on Signal or whatever the case is. So it's fairly workable actually for me, to be very honest. And in my concluding slide, I'll just mention maybe another possible option for the way forward. But at the moment, I'm actually very happy with the Casio watch. So I think I'm just going to show you a brief little video clip here, just to give you a feel and show you sort of what the different screens are. It's just got a couple of basic screens, and then being able to flip between the date time and the step counter. And just before I conclude, I just want to show you also the mobile app, or some images from that app as well. This is the Casio app. Obviously it collects via Bluetooth. It does show you the latest time sync. It does this 4 times a day if you opt to have the time sync. What that means is that 4 times a day, it's going to trigger a very brief connection between the phone and the watch. It actually triggers it from the watch's side, and it does a quick sync with essentially internet time. So what's nice about this is your digital watch is always spot on for time. If you don't have this, you're going to have about a 15-second per month drift in cases of the time. So this just means that ultra convenient. It's like a smartwatch. It's staying on time at all times. Then it's got this sort of function that you can activate to record your location. I just tried it. I'm not really going to be using it, but I used it during an exercise just to see what does it do to track my exercise. It doesn't really superimpose the step count with the map and this and that really, but you know, it's probably more of a, maybe a little bit more of a gimmick, but just for interest's sake, I did this. So in this particular mode that you're seeing here, I've got the recording active at the moment, and I did have it to stop automatically after an hour, or you just stop it manually. And while actually anytime, you don't have to have that active, by the way, but if you just quickly press the search button once, it will do a pin drop and just record a time and a place of exactly where you were. This can be during an exercise, actually, or at any time. It's just a useful little feature, I suppose, that somebody might want to make use of. But this is the track it recorded. You can see it's a pretty accurate track, actually, in terms of the walk that I just did. Gives you the start and the end time and so on, and that's about it that you're going to see from the track view. This is what it does show under the life log. It shows you your step activity during the day, and you can view by week or month as well. Step, it gives you an energy estimation. It might not be 100% accurate, obviously, but it does estimate it based on your age and height and what other factors. Age, height, I can't remember what else, but it basically does an estimate on that. So, yes, in conclusion, I'm going to definitely be using this. I've put my Samsung Watch 7 up for sale anyway now. I'm actually finished, I think, with smartwatches. I'm not going to go through this constant cycle of spending money to keep upgrading them. And there's anyway little compromises. They're not 100% accurate. You know, maybe the Apple Watch is probably the most accurate that you get. But to chase these 2-day charging times is just irritated me no end. So what I may be looking at going forward, there's 2 other options. I haven't made my mind up quite honestly yet. One option is actually to look at one of Casio's G-Shock sort of smartwatches. It's solar powered. In essence, you probably don't even have to charge it, as far as I understand. It can actually keep going perfectly well just with its solar if you're getting a little bit of sun and so on every day. That has got notifications. It doesn't have the shopping list, so it's not that type of smartwatch, but it has got all the other health stuff, step counter, etc., etc. Whether that's justified to go for that cost, and then remembering that how long is that watch going to last, I'm not maybe leaning that way, to be very honest. It's something that I did just think about a lot yesterday. The other option I'm thinking about, and I might very well do this, is go the whole circle and go back to the Pebble watch. The new Pebble that is being released now in December, or end of December, has got about a 30-day battery life. It's a color screen. It's e-ink, so you can view it in the bright sunshine. It's got the shopping lists that I use as well. Hopefully that app does get updated. It's got heart rate monitor. It's got a couple of things. I'm not too sure yet what else it's going to integrate with. I know it integrates with the Android Sleep app, Sleep as Android. That is something that I may give quite a serious consideration to. And I know it's sort of half going back into a smartwatch. But to be honest, 30-day battery life with the e-ink display, it's something I will be considering actually quite seriously. But for now, I'm actually very happy with this Casio watch. And if I look at the 50 plus watches that Casio actually produces, I hope it's not another rabbit hole one can go down. But I think the big difference is that something like this watch you could wear 10, 20 years. There's no software updates you've got to apply every week or two. You know, it's a simpler retro style watch, and it really does what you need. You know, it's an interesting sort of a question to ponder on. Does a person really need a smartwatch if you look at their longevity and the other compromises and the issues that go with them? So do yourself a favor, search for, I've ditched my smartwatch for a retro watch on YouTube or, whatever other video platform you look at, and you might find some other interesting perspectives. But anyway, that's really all I wanted to say at the moment. I'll maybe be talking a bit in the future about the other watch if I do end up with that Pebble. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in my next video.